This year, we have about 250 students, a little less than 250 students receiving scholarships. The foundation has nearly 60 endowed scholarship funds, and this year, the foundation alone awarded $123,000. And then we have many people, some of whom are sitting here, who give year by year and who give their scholarships directly to students. And from private donations, we award $365,000 in scholarship support this year. So congratulations to all of the donors, and thank you. So, and I think I had that backward. That number does not include the private scholarships that go directly to students. So that's all the money that comes into the college, whether it's endowed or annual, $365,000, and that is very, very meaningful to our students, many of whom are not on financial aid. They don't take enough credits. They might be part-time, and it makes a difference between coming or not coming. So we're very appreciative of everything you do. It is now my pleasure to introduce Bill Sylvester, who is a longtime resident of Queen Anne's County, and we were just talking about farming and the history of the county, but really he's here because of a family connection. And Bill's father was one of the founders of Chesapeake College 50 years ago, and his mother served on our board of trustees. And in honor of our 50th anniversary, she made the decision to endow a scholarship here. And Bill is going to talk to us about those personal links to Chesapeake College. Bill?
So thank you, Dr. Vanier, and Chesapeake College, the Board of Trustees, and the Foundation Board for asking me to do this. I want to thank Lauren Haldeman. I think I want to thank her for asking me to speak. This is not what I usually do. I usually have blue jeans and a work shirt on. So if there you are, you little minx. If I may go, I don't think I'm going to talk a little too short, but I think I may talk a little too long, but I'll try to move it along as quick as I can. Lauren asked me to come and talk about my mother's decision to fund this scholarship. You know, what were her motivations? And when I first thought about it, I said, well, I got enough material there for about 2 minutes. But then I started thinking about it, and I said, I can't just do it about my mother. It's a conversation that includes my mother and my father. And if I get a little misty-eyed, you have to forgive me. They were born, Dad was born in 1925. Mom was born in 1927. Mom passed away this past August at 88 years old, and Dad died in 2005. He was 80. My father grew up on the farm that we live on. Actually, he lived in the house across the field from where we live now, but he grew up on that farm. And Mom grew up in Chestertown. Dad, at 17, joined the Navy. He was so young that he had to get his parents to sign a consent to allow him to go in and fight the war, which I always thought was incredible bravery on their part because he was an only child. He stayed in the armed services in the Navy for 4 years. He served in the Far East on ammunition ships, resupplying the bigger ships. That is about the extent of what I know about his service in the military because he never spoke of it. The only other sentence he ever talked about was, it was hell. When he came back, he attended Western Maryland and the University of Maryland and received his degree. My mother, in the meantime, she attended Washington College and graduated summa cum laude. The two of them met at a local dance, and they married in 1949. And if they were still here today, they'd been married 66 years. They started farming that year. They had very little. In the following year of their marriage, they had they had their first child, my sister Ann. And probably within the next year, my grandfather died, leaving my father to run the farm. And as he puts it, he was scared to death. He didn't know what he was doing. They had little money, but he had a drive and a will to succeed. And they lived a very frugal life. By 1956, they had me. I'm the baby of the family. And you hit perfection, it's time to quit, right? So I said they didn't have very much money. I remember hearing Mom and Dad both talking about having to sell a calf to buy groceries. As children, we didn't have much, but we didn't do without. We had a great place to play. We invented our games. We grew livestock and vegetables for money. And we picked up corn for money. Back then, the machinery wasn't nearly as good, and it left a lot in the field, so we would work. It taught us the value of work at a very early age. During this time, we had all manner of livestock: dairy, beef, sheep, pigs, chickens. But by the time I was about 8, 10, 12, those things started going away. And I think, I always said I was 11, but I've done the arithmetic, and I just don't think it works. I think I was younger. We finally sold out of dairy, and that was our last bit of livestock. And at that point in my life, or at that point, my father said, that's when I started to make some money. And he did well. They did well. Farming's been good to us. It's not the kind of thing you get rich at, but if you persevere and you're frugal, you can have a good living. About this time, mid-60s, Dad became involved, I guess, in local politics. He was, at that time, I don't know if you were elected or appointed, but I believe you were appointed. He became a member of the Queen Anne's County School Board, ultimately serving as president for 12 years. During his tenure on the school board, he became great friends with Dr. Harry Rhodes. Harry was the superintendent of schools for Queen Anne's County, and he is, I know there's people here that know Dr. Rhodes, and he's an icon of this county. He passed away year before last. He was almost 100, and we miss him terribly. Great wit and a great intellect. Anyway, and I pulled this portion here right from the website of Chesapeake College, because I had to do a little bit of research, just because I can't remember the dates and I was young. But on the Chesapeake College website, it says, I quote, in 1965, the Maryland General Assembly adopted legislation providing for the creation of regional community colleges. That same year, 3 members each from Caroline, Kent, Queen Anne's, and Talbot counties school boards met with representatives from the Maryland State Department of Education to plan for Chesapeake College, which was chartered in December 22nd, 1965. Classes opened in 1967 in the Queen Anne's County High School in Centerville with an enrollment of 260 students, taking classes in the late afternoons and evenings. During that year, the administrative staff, faculty, and library were housed in the Kennard Elementary School in Centerville. Beginning in September 1968, its second year, the college took gradual occupancy of the 5 new buildings at Y Mills. Chesapeake College graduated its first class in May of 1969. Now, this was no small undertaking by them. I told a little story to Dr. Vernier about how when this legislation was passed, father was president of the school board. These two were great friends. You know, he came to him and he says, Emmett, we need to build this college. And my father said, yeah, let's do it. And they were told, and they got a lot of pushback, because they said, it'll never happen because you'll never get those other counties to pitch in and build a school here in this county. You know, why would they do that? But my father was about yay tall, 5'8", 160, 70, 80 pounds, and he was a force of nature, and Harry Rhodes was too. They got it done. They convinced the other counties to do it. Dad was installed as the first chairman of the board of trustees. During the same time, 66, 67, Harry Rhodes and my father and the school board and other people got the Queen Anne's County High School built in Centerville. I mean, it was some significant stuff. My sister Ann was in the first graduating class of that school. I was 12 at the time. In addition to this, my father seemed to find time running the farm, working with the school boards, working with the college. He served as a director of Centerville National Bank for 32 years, I think. He was on the Maryland State Ag Commission, and he did accomplish many other things. And it was in the 70s that I began to notice how special they were, both of them. After marriage, they went for 19 years without a vacation. In the early 70s, they had 4 kids in college, and I was in private school. They did all this, and they were still able to give back and expand business. I think it was late 80s and early 90s that my mother went on the board of Chesapeake College Board of Trustees, eventually serving as chairman, and I believe for 2 terms, but I'm not sure on that. In addition to raising 4 unruly children plus me, she was very active in her church, the Old Y, right here in Y Mills. It was after her family was the center of her universe, and the local and state garden clubs, among other things. Mom was the intellectual in the family, the liberal. She read constantly. Sometimes as much as a book a day. Sorry. Her weeks always included a trek to the library, where she would return a stack, and she'd leave with a stack. Most weeks had her reading 4 to 5 books per week. One of her favorite things was getting together with her book club and discussing the latest assignment. As the bleeding heart liberal of the family, she was the leader in discussing ways for us to give back to the community that had given us so much. At the end of each year, I'd have conversations with her and Dad about to whom and how much we should give. My dad usually saying with a smile on his face something like, "You want to give how much to who for what?" And my mom just replying, "Now, Emmett." And that'd be the end of that. So all that leads to, why did Mom leave this gift to the college? Number one, growing up, she always talked about the impact many of her teachers had on her as a young child, how they nurtured her and cared about her. She hoped that by giving scholarships to the students who wanted to pursue a career in education could maybe have the same kind of impact on others. 2, maybe a little bit of vanity, but this is probably my fault. She didn't want any notice, and I said, "No, I want you to let them put it in the paper." They preferred to work quietly and humbly, but I convinced her there was nothing wrong in having the community remember some good they had done. Number 3, they were children of war. An economist gave a seminar once that I was lucky enough to hear, and he said that people's general motivations are hammered into them in their early teenage years. And he gave music as an example. Think about what you like to listen to. It's not the things that you heard when you were in your 30s. It's the things that you heard when you're in your teens. And while they were definitely in their late teens, mid-teens, Mom was in her mid-teens when the war was going on, I believe that this thing had an extraordinary impact on them. And they were part of Tom Brokaw's Greatest Generation. And for whatever reason, they came back. They were driven to work, to succeed, and most importantly, to make a difference. Finally, she did it because she was a devout woman, a person who truly loved other people, someone who enjoyed sharing ideas and debating issues. She and Dad believed in beneficence, since they truly believed they had been blessed with a wonderful life of friends, a farm, and family. They just wanted to give back for the sake of giving. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. One one of the best things about my job is meeting donors and meeting lots of people and catching up with Sunny and Jim and all of you here every year. But I got to spend a lot of time with your mom, who I had known previously because we were sorority sisters from Washington College, separated by some years. But I got to spend a lot of time with her working on this gift, and we had a lot of fun talking about books, and it was a true pleasure of mine to work with her. Right now, I'd like to introduce our scholarship recipient speaker, Stephanie Thompson-Leitzer, and she has some connections to Chesapeake College as well that she's going to tell us about. It's a great year for connections with our speakers. So, Stephanie, thanks.
I've already been introduced, but my name's Stephanie Thompson-Leitzer, and it's truly an honor to be here today. I don't like public speaking. I would rather text, I would rather email than make phone calls. I would rather do anything than this. But my mom has me here today, so I'm here. The first speech I wrote today was all about my hero, which is my mom. And I reread it, and I was like, damn, that's a really good speech. And then I thought, it has nothing to do about why I was asked to be here today. So I rewrote it. And as much as I would love to share with you how amazing she was, because she truly was, this is a story about me. I grew up on this campus. My mom was a teacher in the English building, and I would sneak out of all of her lectures because it was rather boring into the science building. I loved the smell of it. The smell was formaldehyde, but I loved it. I made friends with all the professors in that building. I made friends with all the secretaries in that building, and I would sit while my mom lectured, and I would listen to them. I would peer inside the classrooms. I would look in the windows. I would watch the dissections. I absolutely loved it. I've always loved science, and I wanted to be a veterinarian for the majority of my life. I even told people in fancy meetings my mom dragged me to, such as this one, my name was Stethoscope. She was mortified. I thought it had a nice ring to it. My mom did instill in me the importance of education. I had no choice after high school but to go to college. So after we applied to many colleges, I was so excited to have an early acceptance to Western Maryland College. I was the first in my family to actually go away to college, which was a big deal for my family. It wasn't far, it was just in Westminster, but it was a huge step. But in the spring of my senior year of high school, things changed. My mom was diagnosed with the devil's of all cancer, glioblastoma multiforme. Early in the spring of my freshman year of college, she died. I felt alone and abandoned, and these feelings were very hard to shake for a very long time. When the person that you love most in this world disappears, it's devastating. Bill. After 7 years of being in and out of college, I finally graduated with a Bachelor's of Arts. Yes, it took 7 years, and yes, I probably could have been a doctor in this time. But at this point in my life, I'm not so embarrassed to admit that it did take me 7 years for a bachelor's degree. I accepted this was my time to grieve, and this was my time to learn about life. Not stories, not lessons that could ever be taught in a classroom. I worked as a veterinarian tech for a few years in high school and in college and in all the in-between years. I worked in physical therapy departments for Good Samaritan Hospital as well as Johns Hopkins. It was in all these places I learned I loved medicine. I loved working with people, and I loved working in a hospital. But I knew emotionally I wasn't ready for all the parts of medicine. Death and the memories of my mom being carried out of our home in a body bag will forever haunt me. I stopped being a vet tech because I couldn't handle the euthanasias. The effects it had on loving families was devastating to me. Every time my heart ached, with every euthanasia, I cried right with the family. And I knew I wasn't ready to help families cope yet, so I needed to leave my position. But I thought physical therapy is a great way to stay in the medical field and not deal with death. And no, I didn't deal with death, but I did deal with grieving families. Families of stroke patients that knew their loved ones would never ever make a full recovery. It was hard to find the words to help them cope. Another difficult time, another time I needed to walk away from my beloved job. But again, it was a great learning experience. After several years of college, I did finally graduate, or they got really sick of seeing me on campus and just sent the diploma in the mail. I had gotten a job with Talbot County Public Schools as a special education teacher. Assistant. I loved it. I loved working with those kids more than I can actually share with you. But it combined everything that I loved, taking care of people, working on things with changing things to make unique experiences for them, loving them, taking care of them, doing ADLs, and critically thinking every second of every day. I started a master's class, trying to get a special education teacher degree. I even secured a position with Talbot County Public Schools as a teacher once I had completed my degree. But again, life threw a little surprise for me. My husband and I were pregnant. Nothing we had planned for or expected, but a baby boy was definitely headed our way. As my son grew inside of me, I changed. I got stronger emotionally, and this was a well-needed change. The moment that he was born, my life was no longer just my life, it was our life. We had to do things that best suited our family. So I would do something that I swore I would never, ever, 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 ever do, and that was become a stay-at-home mom. This was a really hard choice because my mom was a huge advocate of women's rights and that women are just as good as men, actually better. I struggled thinking I would have disappointed her with this decision, but I needed to make this decision for my family, not for what she had wanted. 1 boy, 2 girls, and 8 years later, it was time for a change. I needed a career. A family of 5 and 1 income is a huge challenge. I felt compelled also to let my kids see that whatever you wanted in life with hard work and determination, you can get there, no matter how old you are. I'm one of those rare people that loathed being pregnant, but I loved labor and delivery. I'm probably the only person to say I loved labor and delivery. For myself, for others, I watched it, I researched it, I asked people questions about it. I'm just in love with the process. My OBGYN became a good friend. My pediatrician became a good friend. Once again, medicine had reeled me in again. After a lot of talking with my husband, we decided I would go to school again. Going back to school is an expensive and very time-consuming endeavor, neither of which we had excess of, but I needed to make this work. I was ready. Endurance training had taught me about inner strength and determination, so when I set a goal, I make it happen. The financial part was a heavy load, almost a game changer for us, especially since I'm still paying for my student loans for my bachelor's degree of a very expensive institution. I went to financial aid desperately. I knew my mom had a scholarship fund, and I wanted to see if I could get some of those funds to help me. Mindy Schaefer called me back into her office. She told me the fund didn't have much money, but my 4.0 GPA would open doors to other funds. She said it was clear I was in need, and it was clear I was a very determined individual. As long as I kept my grades up, she could help. I did my part, and she did her part. Her help made my dream a possibility. Your donations helped make my dream a reality. So here I am in nursing school. With your donations, my determination, and a ton of support from my family and might as well be, and my friends. My family hasn't had to suffer due to the financial obligations, but they have suffered through numerous exams. So in summary, I lost my mom at a crucial age. Her loss has taught me things that go way beyond a classroom, things I otherwise would have never, ever learned. I'm at a point now where all of my lessons have come together. Mom's death, the birth of my 3 children, my several work opportunities, and my endurance performances have shaped me. I feel these things have helped to prepare me for no matter what scenario I'm faced with, to help my patients and to help their families as well. So when I say thank you, it isn't just from me. It's from my mommy that I know is beaming down with pride. It's from my husband because he has one less financial worry and one more way he can make me happy. It's also from my 3 monkeys who are very excited to see their mommy become a nurse. So thank you, thank you, thank you from my entire family, but especially from me, to Diana Bizanar and the ladies at Dorchester Auxiliary. Your kindness and your donations have already made a huge difference in 5 lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you, Stephanie, and I can't wait to be at Nurses Pinning and see you at the culmination of that program. I think they said it all about, what we're about, and we have many students here in the health professions. We have students here in many other degrees, but it is the donations that makes a difference for them. And a lot of people know that we are a more affordable alternative to the McDaniel and other colleges, but we are still beyond the reach of many students who are raising families of their own. Almost all of our students work, many full-time, and they simply could not take advantage of the opportunity without people like Betty Sylvester and others coming together to say, we care about making sure that future generations have these opportunities. And I'm sure that someday we will also see the Thompson Leitzer children here. And we're proud of that. We're proud of what we do, but we're especially proud of the people who are here today. So thank you all for being here. Delegate Mount sneaked in a little late, but we're happy that he could join us and hear these stories. And also, of course, as a nursing student, Stephanie now has the opportunity to use our birthing mother simulator, who may not be part of your research, but who gives the nursing students the opportunity to practice before they get to the real people. And we're very excited that people who made donations made that possible so that once students get here, they have the best possible learning experience. Thank you all again, and have a wonderful Thanksgiving.